I'm Kathy. I'm the host and curator of Pregnant and Popped, and today is the first of our webinar series, which is happening between the Pregnant and Popped Baby Fair for Mums events. Everything is being recorded for your ease of following everything up. Little bit of an introduction about me, in case you didn't know. I'm Kathy. My company is Empower. It's based on me being a certified postpartum doula. But the reason you're all here today is actually my other role, where I'm the founder and curator of Pregnant and Popped, the baby fair for mums. So I'm super proud of what we've managed to achieve in just over a year now with the network. We've got over 70 perinatal brands that are involved with Pregnant and Popped. And we try and make sure we've got at least 30 of them at each and every fair, which happens every 6 months. We're passionate about doing it every 6 months so that we meet you exactly where you are, whether you're pregnant or popped. We want to make sure that we are informing you and giving you choices with all of the amazing perinatal service providers and brands that are in Singapore. So Pregnant and Pop definitely isn't about me. It's actually all about the partners and the partners that I work with. So I want to make sure that I give them the best possible introduction. This is our first of our webinar series that's happening between the May and November fair. And I am so happy that we've got Bex and Laura from Health to Mama with us. Together, they are literally the experts when it comes to women's physiotherapy, rehab, and exercise in particular. Today is very much talking about, mummy tummy. They have a really dynamic and innovative way of helping mums with this, coming from the physio background, but also the rehab and exercise background. I'm so excited to hear about the new programs that they've developed and designed for mums in Singapore, but also worldwide. Without further ado, I am going to stop sharing my screen. We'll come back. I'll give you a little bit more information about Pregnant and Popped in the webinar series later, but I want to hand over to Bex and Laura, who have a really innovative and exciting talk and Q&A session to give you about demystifying your mummy tummy.
Okay, I just want to welcome everybody to coming and listening to Laura and myself talk today. Thank you, Kathy, for inviting us today. So what we're trying to do is we want to help people get to the bottom of what is actually causing your mummy tummy. So a lot of people think it's just down to diastasis recti, but actually quite often it's down to a number of factors. So we're just going to go through a few and break it down for you. So now if we look at these are all the different things that can contribute to your mummy tummy. So you can see there's excess fat, excess skin, it can be your posture. There are changes that happen to your actual abdominal muscles and they separate during pregnancy, poor core strength, bloating, and then obviously your C-section scar, which can kind of get stuck down and make your tummy look bigger. So we're going to go through each of these and just show you how you can measure it to work out what's going on with yours. All right, so first of all, we're going to go into excess fat. Now, this is one which actually we have a lot of mums that come in to see us and they're like, oh, it's my diastasis recti. And actually, quite often it's just a excess fat that laid down in your pregnancy, which annoyingly is still hanging around. So to look at a few ways of actually checking out how much fat you have on your tummy, there are the following. So you can look at the finger pinch. Is simply just pinching your tummy and just seeing if you can grab more than a couple of inches. Then we can go on to using calipers. So using calipers are something which you can get for about a couple of dollars. And what they do is they just squeeze the area and give you a definitive amount of millimeters of fat that you have. So it's obviously not ideal for everyone to find this out, but it is a good way, which is inexpensive, of helping you find that out. So if we go to the next one, there's another way, just a simple tape measure. So a tape measure, we advise, the problem is that a lot of people think about measuring with a tape measure around their waist, which tends to be up round this area, around the actual part here in your waist. And what actually you need to do is, if you've had a baby, is actually measure around the widest part. That's the part that's been most affected. So most of our mums, they find that actually it's lower down that the fat is a problem, rather than just up around the midriff. So find the widest part and then just get a measure, a tape measure, measure around, do it in centimeters rather than inches. And that's another simple way of checking out the fat. And then the simple one is, can you find that your normal jeans, do they do up? Do you, your favorite clothes, are you finding it's difficult to do up the button? Well, then you can just go on to using that as a factor of whether you're losing the fat around your tummy. So what to do if you have excess fat? There are a number of things you need to do. Really, the main thing is it's about getting yourself or your body to be in energy deficit. That means that you need to basically burn more calories or energy than you are actually taking in. So there are a number of different exercises. You might know about these, but HIIT is high intensity. That's where you do kind of a period of maybe say 30 seconds of going up the stairs, or doing fast squats, and then having a rest period of about 10-15 seconds. So that is known to actually increase your metabolism and the fat burning process. Then you've got the low intensity, so the LIIT, and that's when you do your kind of more extended amounts of exercise. So for instance, if you went for a long, fast walk for an hour, or a long run, if you're able to run, or go on an exercise bike for an hour. So that's kind of a much more longer, extended period of exercise. And then another important one that people don't realize is actually incorporating strength exercise into your regime, because if you increase your amount of muscle in your body, that actually will help to burn fat. So we recommend, doing a mix of all three. So not just keeping with one, but actually doing a bit of mix of high intensity, a bit of long intensity, and then also making sure you do some strengthening exercise as well. Now, a big one is obviously dietary changes. So you do need to, as I say, reduce the energy you're taking in. Now, we have in our app, Health to Mum app, a couple of things that can help. We've got some simple nutrition tips, which are really helpful to read, that kind of you can just put into your normal daily routine, that will, things that will probably surprise you, that can help reduce fat. And the other one is that we've got recipes. There's about 1,000 recipes in the app, which are either you can choose low carb or low calorie, and that will help you give some ideas of how you can adjust your diet and then reduce the overall energy you're taking in. And then we also have this muscle-sculpting fat burn treatment that we have introduced this year. And this machine causes a kind of apoptosis of the fat, so it dissolves by heating up the fat cells to a certain level and causing them to die. So these are our, three kind of recommendations to help reduce the fat if that's a problem that you have causing your mummy tummy. So if we move away from the fat, let me just go on to the next one. So Laura's now going to talk about the excess skin. This is commonly one that we have with mums, is that they actually have a problem with more skin than they used to have after having a baby.
Yeah, so sometimes this is more apparent on those who have potentially quite a flatter tummy, it seems, and they just have a bit that they would describe as hanging. So when we're looking at excess skin, you've got an example there of like a pretty horrific thing to do to yourself if you're feeling brave, but it's a bit of like what we call the tummy hug. So if you've had a baby, or if you've had a lot of weight loss and you've got some excess skin, if you do that little skin hug, you're going to see that kind of dimpling effect. So because Bex and I are feeling very brave tonight, we're going to give you an example of how that can different looks. So if you look, for example, if I get my tummy out there and I do a little tummy hug, there's a little extra fat there, but there's no extra skin. Now, if I get Bex, my lovely assistant, to have a stand up, and if we get her to get her tummy out,
down a bit.
yeah, and if she then does a
Whoa,
skin,
I need to
skin
get around
hug,
this way. Okay.
yeah, skin hug, you can see there's an example of extra skin. So with excess skin, you could be doing ab crunches and exercises until the cows come home. Unfortunately, doesn't make a huge difference. So what can we do for excess skin? So this, I guess, as we said, is a bit more of a challenge one and tends to involve needing more of an invasive approach. So things like collagen injections in and around the area can be of help. Profahilo is used by some aesthetics doctors. We look at doing, so the radio frequency that we use for the fat burning part of the machine that we have can help. It's not its primary use, but it can help, and we have found some women have got positive results from it, just from the skin sort of tightening effect. There are different radio frequency treatments, however, that can be done a little bit more targeted. Some do look at laser work as well for stretch marks. And then, of course, the last option is the abdominoplasty, or that's like the tummy tuck, where they pull it off and cut it off. Now, obviously, that's a very effective way of getting rid of extra skin, but it is quite an invasive one. So it's not something that we just advise people to undertake easily. It can be quite intense. So this is just an up close of the radio frequency there. So the other component that can contribute to this, which is really straightforward and rather easy to kind of tackle in theory, is posture. So we need to remember that the abdominal muscles are postural muscles that are meant to help support us. And when we are upright, we have gravity pulling down on us, and the contents of our abdomen essentially become a little bit of resistance that push outwards. The easiest way we see this is if you ever think about how in the morning you wake up and you think, oh, my tummy looks quite flat today. And by the end of the day, you're like, oh, it looks like I'm 4 months pregnant, even if I haven't been. Because just as we go throughout the day, the muscles naturally fatigue and then they tend to kind of slump off. And especially if you haven't had the opportunity to build up the strength after you've had a baby, and those abdominal muscles are still a bit stretched out, lax, and a little bit maybe lazy still, then it's going to promote that kind of what we call a lordotic posture. And essentially the lordotic posture is as that lady is there, where your lordosis, or this curving in your spine, is a little bit excessive. So I sometimes get some mummies coming in to want an assessment, and they stand like this because it's the pregnancy kind of standing posture. And just by correcting that, they immediately see an improvement. Now, this doesn't mean you should spend your entire time trying to pull in, stand up, and suck in. That is not the purpose of drawing attention to the posture. The purpose is to recognize that when you start treating the tummy muscles and you start improving the back muscles as well and start getting stronger, those will naturally start to be able to resist the pull of gravity a bit more, be able to make you stand more upright for longer. But inevitably, if you've had a long day, if you're feeling tired, if it's been a long day after not a lot of sleep, you're going to find that you will revert back to some of these postural stances. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that we want to help you strengthen up so you can move out of those naturally, not try to hold yourself in. Because the other thing I hate hearing is mommy saying, oh, well, it's okay. I'm going to get a corset and I'm going to get one of these back strap, hold them in, everything in the right position, because that's not what we're designed to do either. We are designed to be mobile and moving and strong enough to help support us upright, but not being held in position by something else. Okay, so I think Bex is now going to discuss a little bit more about the ab changes that happen during pregnancy.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, go in.
So this is actually, I mean, people, they get quite scared about the word diastasis recti, but the thing is that does actually happen to every mum. It happens in normally the later stages of pregnancy. And it usually is worse if you are having, pregnancy of multiples, or if you actually have had multiple pregnancies, so more than one child. For about 60% of mums, it does heal itself by about 8 weeks after birth, but there are, about 40% of mums, it continues to still be a problem after the 8-week period. And that's when obviously they normally need some help, whether it's a women's health physio and exercise, to help kind of heal that problem. So if we just actually go through more info here, what I want to actually show you is it's not just about these actual muscles separating. So diastasis recti is when they're talking about separation of the two six-pack muscles known as rectus abdominis muscles. And what actually happens in the middle, which people don't really think about as much, is this linea alba, which is the connective tissue between the two muscles, actually becomes stretched, and it becomes thinner and a bit more fragile, okay, at the end, towards the end of the pregnancy. But there's a thing that people don't think about also a lot, which is actually, if you look at this woman here, you see that the muscles actually stretch as well in the lengthways position. So they become longer, and they also become thinner themselves. So it's not just separating, they actually kind of stretch. And that's to actually accommodate the increased tummy size and the increased baby and the uterus. So they actually change shape themselves. So it's not just about trying to heal and actually get the muscles to come together. It's also about trying to get the muscles to shorten again and not be stretched and long as they are after you've just had the baby. So if I just go to how to check for it. So if this is a simple thing you can try at home. It's not just about checking for the gap between the two muscles. It's also checking, as I just said, that connective tissue between the two muscles, the linea alba. It's checking, how, well, flimsy it is in a way, or how soft it is. So what you're wanting to do is you want to feel, if you think about your muscles where they actually start beneath your kind of chest bone here. So just at the top there, they start there and they go down towards your pubic bone. So what you want to do is kind of feel how, feel 3 different parts. You want to feel obviously at the belly button level, and then feel between the chest bone or rib cage, bottom of the rib cage and the belly button. And then also feel between the belly button and your pubic bone. So what you're going to do is just get your fingers, 2 fingers, kind of pointing down towards your pubic bone. And you place them in that area. So if you say between the rib cage and the belly button, or between your chest bone and the belly button, and then you do a small ab curl, and you're trying to look for 2 things. One you're wanting to see is how many fingers can you press into the gap? Can you press 1, 2, or 3? Or with some cases, we have mums who are 4 or even more that you can actually push into the gap. So that's your first thing. How many fingers can you press into the gap? And then you want to see how, soft that linea alba connective tissue is and how it's been affected. So the way of doing that is, if you're pressing down, you can feel how many knuckles worth. So obviously that's 1 knuckle, 2 knuckles, 3 knuckles. How far can you press down? And that's actually looking at, the consistency of your connective tissue. So if you try those 2 things at the 3 points, and then just kind of jot them down, what you find, that will give you a good way of having a comparison to compare with later down the line, once you've done the exercises and try to get the core strength back. So if I just go into showing you this is just an interesting thing that I thought might be worth bringing in, is because the amount of mums that we have coming in who are signing up and saying, I want to heal my DR, it's the cause of my mummy tummy, or they believe it's the cause of their mummy tummy. And actually, this proves it's not, okay? This woman has got a very, very obvious diastasis recti. Her muscles are separated still, but her stomach is probably the stomach that a lot of people would very happily have, okay? It looks like an ironing board. It's as flat, it's completely flat. And this will be because she has extremely good core strength. She obviously doesn't have any fat lying over the top. So she's managed to completely flatten her stomach, but not completely close the diastasis recti. But what my biggest point of getting to with that is that it's not just down to DR. It's normally a combination of things, which is why we're doing this talk today, to actually show mums that you need to look at a few factors of why you have this mummy tummy. It's because of that. And if I sort that, it's going to go. You know, it's normally you have to sort, unfortunately, a few things to actually get rid of your tummy. So let's just have a look at if you do have a DR or these muscle changes in the abs, so the muscles are longer, what you can do about it. So as we said earlier, this is the muscle-sculpting treatment we were talking about, and I will actually show you a little bit more info about it. So I'm just going to show you the video now. Okay, so, oh, just going to go back to that one. Hang on a sec. Okay, so that was showing you, I need to get that one to stop. Hang on a sec. Okay, right, let me pause that one. Okay, so one of those things is obviously we just showed you, that was the muscle sculpting treatment we offer in clinic. So what that actually does is use electromagnetic energy, and by doing that, it actually kind of helps restore your ab muscles. So it helps to restore length, it helps to restore the thickness, and well, it restores these things by about 25%, but it's shown also to help heal your DR by 20%. So that's why we are showing you the evidence of that treatment there. We also, as I said earlier, the muscles have become longer from when you were pregnant. And so it's key to try and actually get them to shorten again. So a simple way of doing that is obviously doing ab curls. Now, I know most people go, oh my gosh, you do not do ab curls when you've had a DR. Everyone says you shouldn't do it. Well, yes, you should not be doing full sit-ups, but actually just simply lifting your shoulder blades off the floor. If I just show you that again. You're just going to the point of lifting your shoulder blades off the floor. You can see that the stomach is actually becoming shorter. So the rib cage is coming down towards your pubic bone, meaning that area is becoming shorter, and that will also help to shorten your muscles again. Terrible at getting these things to stop. Okay, right. Then another key factor is obviously trying to get your core muscles to work. Now, this is one of our mums. She's regaining that activation of her core muscles, and you can see it's flattening the stomach. So that's another key factor of helping to play that one again, helping to well, to heal DR and flatten your tummy again is actually learning how to get the deep core muscles to work. All right, so going on to that, we'll go on to just the core strength. So this is kind of, as we were saying, it's just tied in a bit with the diastasis recti. As I said, I showed that lady just flattening her tummy by using her deep core muscles. You can actually have a problem with your tummy just because you have, well, reduced strength in your core muscles and actually don't have a problem with diastasis recti. So we have mums that come in and they go, you know, you actually will test them for diastasis recti and they actually don't have any separation, yet their tummy is still, you know, bigger than they would hope it would be. As I said, it could be to the fat and the excess skin, but often actually we find that it's just your strength is not good, you know, after you've probably not done very much during the pregnancy, and it does take time to get the muscles to work again, and that will end up doing kind of a pulling back action. So if we show you, like, if you look at these muscles here, these are your deep core muscles. So just showing you that. Now the pelvic floor is at the bottom. here, okay? And that is closely linked, and that acts like a sling holding up your uterus and bowel, okay? And then above is your transverse abdominis corset muscle. Now, the reason you obviously don't have these ties and ribbons inside you. This is just our way of trying to show you how they work, because when your actual deep core muscles or this transversus muscle works, it actually kind of pulls outwards, and it will, as that kind of result, it actually kind of flattens the tummy. So working on those muscles, I'm going to show you back. So working on those muscles, working on that deep corset muscle, what it actually does is a good way of showing it is, I can try and get this to work properly. Is it this way?
So closer.
Closer. Try it. We'll go that way. I'm trying to show it. There, right. So if you think about it, the core muscles are trying to, they actually, when they work, they pull outwards like that. And as they do that, your tummy actually will flatten backwards, okay? So if you think about it, the deep core muscle, transverse abdominis, it pulls outwards from both sides, and then it at the same time will pull that tummy backwards. So that's why those core muscles are important. Now, you can test your core strength with a couple of simple tests. So you can do these at home. One is a double leg stretch test. So have a look at how far you can take your legs out. You know, is it 20 degrees, 45, 70? And then note, do you see that your tummy pops up? Do you see that you have a widening of your kind of separation? Does your back feel like it's lifting up a lot? And do you just generally feel, oh my God, that doesn't feel good. I don't feel I have the strength at all. So just try and note down what you can do, or how far you can stretch your legs out, but feeling comfortable and feeling that you've got the strength to do it, okay? And then note that down, and then obviously with doing exercises and strengthening yourself up, you can then compare again and see if it's improved. So if we go to the next one, this is the plank test. So if you look at the top, you want to see how long can you hold a plank for? Can you hold it for at least 30 seconds, keeping your core in, or shoulder blades back, body in line? Obviously, quite often, I mean, that's quite exaggerated, to be honest, with how far my bum is up in the air, but you wouldn't be surprised how many people you see in the gym who literally do have the bum up in the air, or their bum is down, or their hips are dropping, or the shoulder blades are all kind of hunched up at the top. So just see how long you can hold that. Now, if you look at the bottom here, this is actually a way of looking. If you put a mirror underneath your tummy, you can actually see what's going on. Now, can you see, this is myself, because to be honest, I do actually have a bit of a diastasis recti, but because I worked on my core so much, I managed to control it. So if I do not have my core on, you can see this is my belly button is popping out. You can see there's a ridge. I switch my core on, and then obviously that has actually sorted itself out. So if you put a mirror underneath you, just note what's going on. Do you see a kind of ridge? Do you see your belly button popping out? Do you see your tummy doming? So just have a go at doing that one as well. Okay, and then what can you do? Well, as I said, we went back. So I showed you that the woman doing the engaging the right core muscles to flatten her tummy. So the best way for getting your core strength up is to do kind of specialized exercises, learn how to get the right muscles going, and then obviously to do controlled exercises that will increase the strength more in them and test them out. So we have our app, Health to Mama app, and we have a program of 4 levels, which will guide you through getting yourself from doing very kind of basic movements up to getting back to doing kind of planks correctly, much more kind of strengthening ab curls and other things which are a little bit harder and more functional. So you just kind of guides you through. So we have that way. So we'll get you working the muscles correctly first, and then we will start you on the workouts. And then if you need it and you feel that you want a bit of support, because we find a lot of people just don't like to rely on an app and wondering whether they're doing things correctly. We also have the ability to see you and monitor you and check that you're doing the exercise correctly, and that helps to motivate you at the same time. So you know which or when you're ready to progress to each level. So now we're just going to go on to bloating. Massive problem for most people, I think, after having a baby, or if before, actually.
Yeah.
But I think it's something that a lot of people do find as a problem more after having a baby. So Laura will talk a little bit more about that.
Swapping in, swapping out. Okay, so bloating, as Bex said, is a pretty nasty issue, and again, yeah, you can struggle with this before or after pregnancy as well. I do love this image because it's quite flat tummy and it's a very neat little bloat. I myself struggle with this, so sometimes I can look like I am, never mind 3 months pregnant, I can look like I'm 4 months pregnant, and after visiting the bathroom, I can look a significant amount less. This could be to a number of different reasons, and again, you really need help and guidance on what's causing these. It can be due to things like hormonal changes, or it can be due to diet issues. We do recommend that if you are struggling with either of these, you're seeking out the right help, because it can first of all be very uncomfortable. It can really look quite aggressively large. And that can be very disheartening if you've been working really, really hard and your strength is coming back and things are going the right way, and you still have this huge variation. You suddenly think to yourself, is this working or not? And that can be down to the bloating. So what can you do? So we would advise to get help on this because it can be quite challenging, and the right dietitian or nutritionist can really help you on this. If you want to just try by yourself, something like a diet process of elimination can be quite useful. You can do it sort of one of two ways. You can try eliminating everything and slowly introducing one thing back at a time, or you can do the reverse, where you try and cut out one thing and see how that goes. It tends to be usually with people who are struggling with this as well. It's never just, unfortunately, one thing. It's usually a combination of things. So then we start looking at something a little bit more intense, something like a FODMAP diet. And for those who have or have experience about this, it's eliminating lots of different kinds of foods and potential irritants, and trying to map out which are the ones that you are struggling with, or which are the ones that you can actually manage. It can be quite restrictive initially, especially if you're not sure which is which. So again, following a recipe and meal plan really does help with this. And then again, if you think this is potentially something hormonal, and this is really important that you see a specialist in hormones as well, you need to consult either the right kind of, well, starting off GP, then if needs be going and referred on to an endocrinologist, because this is not something that's ever straightforward, and it involves lots of blood tests and monitoring, and really needs to be followed up correctly to have the most benefit out of the treatment. So these are just some of the guidelines and ideas. And as I said, we always recommend seeing the right kind of specialist for that. So, and the last that we're going to be talking about today with regards to potential mummy tummy contributing factors is the C-section scar. Now, this obviously only affects those women who have had C-sections or abdominal surgeries which have a similar incision. So when you get the scar tissue that forms along the, provided you've got the, most are now the vertical kind of C-section, you can get like a stepping effect or a stooping effect over the scar itself, and that's sometimes referred to as the C-section lip. If you have a lot of tightness around there and that kind of stepping effect, it can really affect some people because they feel like, okay, I look okay till I get to the C-section, and then it feels like there's a huge big bump there. So what do we do to help treat that? So C-section scar massage is really, really useful if you've got adhesions. Sometimes because they've cut through so many layers, some of the layers can get sort of stuck to each other and they aren't able to move as well as they should. And if you've got adhesions, like with any scar, any place in the body, it can kind of trap down and then cause like a puckering effect there. So if we look at this video, and I hope I'm going to be able to get it to work nicely.
Yes, just go right.
So, okay.
Just go like that.
There we go. Okay, great. So You start the C-section scar massage after the 6-week point, and there are different stages and phases to help you depending on how you are with the sensation as well. This is just an example of one of the moves that we teach, where you are smoothing your fingers along the scar 10 times and then 10 times in the other direction. So as we mentioned, this can be done. Thank you. This can be done after you've been cleared by your gynae, you take the 6-week mark. However, sometimes what will happen is that somebody will have a lot of sensitivity around the scar. So we don't advise starting on something that's quite so aggressive first. You might need to do a lot of desensitizing work to get to the stage where you can feel the scar, because a lot of women find that they've avoided touching it after the birth, and now it's become a bit sensitive, sometimes even to the point of where like t-shirts feel uncomfortable if they touch it, or if your underwear brushes against it, it can feel like, oh, that feels odd. So you need to do desensitizing work and then working your way into each of the layers to try and get that scar mobilizing nicely and moving well, so that it's not stuck to any of the layers below. Obviously, another way to stop that C-section lip is to reduce any fat above the scar. Obviously, because the scars tend to be quite low, there's a slight lower part of the abdomen which does tend to accumulate like a fat deposit, and that can then be kind of stuck exactly just and sit on the scar like a lip and help contribute to that. So reducing fat above the scar obviously helps quite a lot. When you get your muscles stronger and getting the abs working as well, this can also help, because as you are working, for example, from the scar from above and the ab muscles from below, we're looking at drawing it down as well as making the top working as well. So it's a bottom-up effect and a top-down effect. Obviously, in the severe situations, then you've got surgery as a last resort to kind of break up adhesions if there are, or to release if it's been really, really bad, or an abdominoplasty as well, where that's, again, the tummy tuck. But again, it usually is the last resort. So we really recommend having exhausted all other options before you get to that. And we go again. Oh, there we've got the nice little image there of the layers of potential abdominoplasty, ranging from the small along C-section scar all the way through to the full apron, which is all the way across. So, okay. And yes, I think that is all of the information. We've tried to make it as easy and accessible as possible. The main thing we want to remind women is that just if you have a DR, it doesn't mean you need to stop doing everything and, oh my gosh, I need to not do anything in case my DR gets worse. In most situations, it's the opposite. You just need to do the right exercise and help progress on, and then get back into all of the exercises that you want to do, building up the strength, building up your capability. DR is not a stop everything because I could make it worse situation. It's just do the right thing at the right time to help feel strong and feel like you again. So it's not always just about the DR as well. There can be, unfortunately, I've had a couple of situations, and Bex has too, where we've seen lots of these mummies who said, oh, well, I haven't been doing any of the exercises because I didn't want to make it worse. And my DR I know is very bad. And then we measure it and it's not actually that bad as Bex has mentioned. And there's a lot of just fat sitting there. And then honestly, we've had some phenomenal turnarounds where these women have lost that extra fat and feel so happy and proud because they're feeling stronger, they're doing more, and they're so sorry that they waited to get to that stage in the first place. We are at Health to Mama, and we are a team of physios, and we specialize in lots of these women's health and core training components. We have in-person consults, either at home or in our clinic, and then we have online consults as well if it's just easier to get us online. Obviously, there are certain things we can do online and there are certain things we can't. We have a range of different physios who work with us and speaking a range of different languages as well, if that's an issue at all. And again, key thing to remember is that you're postnatal for the rest of your life once you've had a child. So it's never too late, and you can always work at getting stronger and doing more. Our app you can now find at both the App Store if you are on Apple and on Google Play, and you can download it and you can have a free trial for 7 days. And then you can subscribe if you would like to see all of the things that we have mentioned before, both exercises, and we've got some information there on diets and progressing on. So find us on the Apple Store and Google.
And just last thing, and that's
here's our team.
There you go. So thank you, Kathy, for having us. And I hope it was all, well, I hope people found that was kind of informative and helped them kind of get to a little bit more of an idea of what to do.
I know how hard you guys have been working behind the scenes for, you know, a long while to find ways to bring all of this stuff to everyone, and to see the, you know, the stuff that you've got in-house and what you've got on the app now. You must be so pleased, and the team must be so pleased. So thank you so much. So, because you mentioned obviously that it can be a combination of things, and I say personally, I mean, I gave birth 6 years ago. Now I've been told that I don't have DR, and when I feel, and I did all those checks that you were telling me to do while you do it, my fingers, you know, all in the 3 places. So I don't have DR, and I can feel that I don't have DR, but yeah, I've got some mummy tummy now. Like I've assumed that might be just because I've been lazy and I've not been working on my core. My focus at times has been on my pelvic floor core, but not actually on my deep core. So how does it work? Does it work in line with the work that we're told to do with our pelvic floor? Is it separate, or does it work together?
Well, your pelvic floor is just part of the deep core muscles, right? So actually, your pelvic floor strength is obviously very important because it's linked to your deep corset muscle that goes all the way around. But you can't just work your pelvic floor alone to get this deep core muscle to work fully. You actually have to concentrate on this corset muscle itself. Okay, so there are exercises that kind of activate the pelvic floor, and then there is kind of additional exercises to actually kind of do a closing in effect and a flattening effect of using that deep corset abdominal muscle. So we teach, you know, we get you started on the pelvic floor, and then we will bring in how to actually get this corset muscle working as well. And that helps to kind of do the pulling back action to make your tummy flatten.
Okay. And how much of it is the exercises versus those machines that you were, that looked like amazing, by the way. The machine that goes, what did you call it again? The
Muscle sculpting. Yes. It's about sculpting your muscles, I think.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's what it sounds like. So is that something that kind of does it for you, or is that in combination with the stuff that you've got on the app and that you do face to face?
Always in combination. It's a really good adjunct. We found it really helpful, especially for women whose tummies are really kind of switched off, to help kind of activate it. You can feel it when it's on, it's doing the contractions. But like with anything, it's not going to resolve it. Oh, that's better. Yeah. It's not going to resolve it entirely. It's a good adjunct. It's a good start to help you, but it never must be done solely by itself, because don't forget that this is a way to kickstart, get things going, get things switched back on, and then we add on the component of different tummy muscles to get them stronger and working again, because ultimately they're meant to be on and working and being strong for like other things, other exercises, where it's just meant to be kicked on and working. The muscle sculpt is great. It's very useful. We found really great and positive results, as the evidence that we were researching before we brought it in shows. But like with anything, and we'll always tell all of them when they come to see us, that it's very good, but it's an adjunct. You can't do that solely and think that you're going to resolve things entirely. It helps a lot. We've seen some great results, but it's a good kickstart to the exercise programs.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the whole point, is what we've launched is the Abs Fab program. And the reason we've called it the Abs Fab program is, and gone away from calling it the Diastasis Recti healing program or correction program, is because in our, few years of experience, like solely working on this, we've just found that it's not just, as I said, about the Diastasis Recti. It's about taking everything and then just going at it from all directions. So that means you get rid of the fat by looking at general exercise and diet. You look at obviously trying to improve the diastasis, you try and improve your core strength. So it's trying to just get everything from every angle to get the best results, because yes, the muscle sculpting machine, it will improve your diastasis recti up to 20%. It will increase your muscle fibers in the actual abdominal muscles and restore them 25%. It can reduce fat 30%, but you still, to get really good results, you're going to have to get the other, 60-70%.
You still got to work for it.
Yeah. So it's about just hitting it from every angle, because we find that people are just constantly just getting nowhere by doing one thing, and it's not really going to happen with just one thing. It needs to be everything being kind of challenged and looked at.
We've got a question in from someone on the chat, so let me read it. In the image that you showed where the woman has a flat stomach but her abs are obviously still separated, what's the best course of action for that? She obviously has a strong core and works out a lot, but it's still separated. This lady says she has the same problem.
If she's done a proper program, and they do say that you should do up to a year of actually doing the core strengthening religiously before you embark on anything such as surgery. But to be honest, if you've done all of the core strengthening and your core is as strong as it can be, and tried maybe the muscle sculpting as well, because it can help reduce it another 25%. I think really the only way of getting that to completely close is going to have to be the abdominoplasty, or the actual DR correction surgery, where they actually have to open you up, unfortunately, and then they will sew the muscles back together. But it's surgery is, unfortunately, it's not everyone is going to get the results. Sometimes you will need surgery, but what's recommended is to do everything you can for up to a year before embarking on something, because believe me, it's a big op. It's a very, very big op, having to do abdominoplasty. It's very sore. We won't go into it now and what it involves, but it's a massive op. It's not something that should be taken lightly as an operation.
But in the case of that image, that woman that obviously had a very, very strong core but still had the separation, if someone was in that situation, is it still impacting her abilities in any way, or is it then down to pure aesthetics?
Well, honestly speaking, the best way to know is ask. That's what I would say when someone says to me, like, oh, if this is the situation, I've got to be like, well, is it affecting you? Because again, unfortunately, there's been a lot of fear mongering around DR. I'm like, oh, you've got a DR, you're never going to be. If she's strong and able to do everything that she wants to, it comes down to then how it impacts her. And if the impact is she doesn't like the way it looks and that affects her, then she needs to continue doing something about it. And she's like, well, actually, I can do everything I want to do. How it looks doesn't bother me. I feel strong enough. Then I would say it's fine. It depends on what the individual wants. As long as she is strong, able to do it. If she wants to look at reducing a little bit, as Bex said, we work doing a little bit more of like maybe the rectus abdominis or something that's specific for her. But if she's already doing everything and she doesn't mind how it looks, she's just concerned that she still has it, I would say don't be concerned, just keep staying strong, progress on what you want. If she's concerned and she doesn't like how it looks, then by all means look at the next step on, which is the abdominoplasty or the DR repair.
Okay, that makes sense. And the other thing, I don't know if this is getting too technical, but the other thing that I was thinking about was that a lot of people have had a prior C-section and that are then aiming for a VBAC. For those on the call that don't know VBAC, vaginal birth after cesarean, which, they work closely in line with their healthcare team normally to be able to achieve that. Is there more chance of mummy tummy, be it from diastasis recti or lack of core muscles, when you've previously had a C-section, but then go for a vaginal birth on your second time round? Like, are the muscles weaker or anything?
Again, this would depend on the individual. So if you imagine that you've had a C-section, but then afterwards you did the full rehab, you spent time, you put the effort back into building up the tummy muscles, building up the core, everything's good. During the pregnancy, you stay strong, you are able, you then have your VBAC. and you were strong from after the first pregnancy, you were strong during the pregnancy, there would be no increased risk having had a VBAC versus having another C-section.
Okay.
But again, it comes down to the individual, because if you had somebody who's had a C-section, but then as a result, they really struggled afterwards and they didn't have enough time, or they couldn't, or they didn't know about spending time fixing the tummy afterwards. And then they went into the pregnancy and they weren't as strong. And then they didn't really exercise and they weren't very strong during the pregnancy. And then they tried to go in and have the VBAC. Again, what's going to affect that is less about the VBAC and more about how the pregnancy and how the overall strength was.
Okay, that's good to know, because obviously we're seeing, quite a lot of people wanting to try the VBACs after cesareans. So it's good to know that, as long as they're consistent with how they've looked after themselves and their core muscles, that they should actually recover in exactly the same way they did kind of first time round.
With a caveat there as well, usually subsequent pregnancies, because we tend to get a little bit pregnant a little bit faster because our body's now used to it, it tends to be a more concerted effort afterwards. So with subsequent pregnancies, it tends to be a little bit more of a challenge sometimes, most of the times. So you will need to work at it, but that's irrespective of C-section, VBAC, anything. Okay.
So do you, I'm guessing then that actually your loyal customers kind of continue to work through with you guys, from one pregnancy through, stay strong, through like the next pregnancy and then get strong again. You see that continuity with them, which must be incredible.
We're both very passionate about helping women, and we want them to be strong and go on and progress. And it's always about working as a team with everything. So we want women to be able to get back to doing what they want and what their goal is. So yes, not uncommon for them to come in when they're pregnant and say, okay, right, well, we need to do this stuff to get ready. And then they're pregnant, they stay strong, they give birth, we help them rehab, and then they can sometimes go off, and it'll be 2 years or 3 years, and then they come back and they're like, yeah, pregnant again, let's go again. So absolutely, it's wonderful to see people come back. It's wonderful to see people, I think.
Well, that's why we've got, as we're saying with the app we've created, the whole point is that it goes through the whole thing. So actually goes through from conception through to getting back to being you. So pregnancy, recovery, and then getting back to you at the end. And the reason is that we feel that people need support the whole way through. And so they can, and even actually you might need support, with fertility, even if you've had a child already. It doesn't always come very easily to some people the second time or third time round. So we're just trying to, we've really strongly believed with all of our experience over several years is that we are trying to just support people through everything. And the app has everything in one place. That's the point of it. So
yeah, and I have, Bex, you've been showing me the app, and you've been showing me that sculpting machine in action as well. And it's really exciting to have that as as part of the network, actually, to be able to talk about it and bring this knowledge, because I haven't heard anyone else talk about this. We've heard about, like you say, Diastasis Recti and the importance of managing that, but coming at it from this angle of that there's multiple different ways, and definitely the sculpting machine, like it's the first time that I've heard it being talked about in this way, which is fantastic.
Well, thank you very much for letting us actually share everything that we wanted to with everyone.
Oh, well, it's been a wonderful journey working with you guys through Pregnant and Popped. Next one will be in 2 weeks' time with Eiling from Baby Planner. She works with families from newborn all the way up to kind of potty training age, and she's going to be bringing a talk in a couple of weeks' time, again at 8 o'clock on the Monday, about potty training your little ones. She's passionate as well about sustainability and has a lot of knowledge about some of the cloth bum brands, as I like to say in Singapore. But that's not all she'll be talking about. She'll be talking about potty training in general and some of the science and readiness signs about that. The next fair will be on Saturday, the 18th of November. We are taking early bird RSVPs. I know it's super early, but any of you that are on the pregnant postpartum journey, you can get your early bird RSVP, and then you'll get all the updates and all the schedules of the workshops and talks that will be coming out between now and then. So with that, I just want to say a huge thank you to Health to Mama. You guys have been absolutely incredible. You're trying to both get in the picture. You're fine. I hope you found it useful. If you have, drop us a note, let us know your thoughts. If there's any subjects that you'd like Health to Mama to talk about or anybody else, then let me know, and we'll make sure that we bring you the information that you're looking for. Oh, we've got some wonderful feedback already, guys, so thank you so much.
Thank you guys.
Really appreciate it. I'm going to sign off now, and I'll see you all soon. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.